our show. Again, the microphone and the speakers in here, we apologize. We're going to do the best that we can, so hopefully everybody is able to hear us. We want to go through and thank some of our businesses and individuals who helped to make this crazy year happen. We're very, very appreciative for everything that we were able to get. The Grubbs family, Columbiana Mahoning Trumbull Cattlemen's Association, Kurt and Allison Hively, Kiko Meats and the Kiko family, everyone from Damascus Livestock Auction and the Pigeon family, A+ Pest Solutions, Ben Foster, Mackenzie Chestnut Photography was our banner, some of our banner sponsors, Baird Brothers Finewood, Country Wranglers 4-H Club, Full Circle Farms, the Tubbs family, Sugar Creek Stockyards, Baker Farms, Bakerloo Cattle Company, Rocky Hollow Farms, the Timmons family, Kathy Timmons, Agater Farms, Thunder Creek Cattle Company was one of our sponsors to help for the bedding in the steer barn. Bill Altenhoff, Envelope One, the Pigeon family has graciously helped with our copies for the year. Again, Baird Brothers and Danoon Lumber also helped with a lot of the bedding donation for our steers and the barn this year. So again, we'd like to thank everyone who has helped make this possible. Again, we have Class 1 making their way to the ring. We are looking for Kaylee Baker, Dakota McCracken, Alexa Baker, Bailey Warner, Chase Forbes, and Dallas McCracken. As Class 1 enters, we will be looking for Class 2 of Izzy Blazer, Chloe Cooper, Emily Hayson, Corey Hall, and Mackenzie Cope. If Class 2 could start entering the ring. Today we would like to welcome our judge, Jeremy Barber, who comes to us from West Salem, Ohio. He is a graduate of Purdue. The mic keeps cutting in and out. He is a graduate of Purdue University. Later attended the University of Kentucky. He has master's degrees in ruminant nutrition and agricultural education. He has coached the livestock judging team. He is currently a beef nutritionist at Centera Cooperative. And along with his wife, they have a herd of commercial cattle, and they focus on producing show calves for the county and state level. We'd like to welcome Jeremy to Columbiana County Fair. Thank you. So currently in the ring, we have Kaylee Baker with her steer weighing 983 pounds. Dakota McCracken with a steer weighing 1082. Alexa Baker, steer weighing 1083. Bailey Warner, steer weighing 1086. Chase Forbes, steer weighing 1086. And Dallas McCracken with a steer weighing 1087. Good luck, guys. last two start lining up. We're looking for Izzy Blazer, Chloe Cooper, Emily Hasten, Corey Hall, and Mackenzie Cope.
Hopefully nerves and jitters worked out of both our showmen and the cattle in this first class. I think the logical thing to do is to find the young lady's Baldy to win the class, and he does so simply from a quality standpoint. He excels in every conceivable way in my mind. He's the heaviest muscled, he's the soundest structured, and darn it, he's just the best looking from the side. The highest quality wins the class quite handily in my mind. I think from there we've got an interesting pair, an interesting decision in second and third. And for me, it's just the young man's calf in second. It's just his build and design. I think he's built square from top to bottom. I think he's more symmetrical. I think there's a fraction more real-world durability inside that cattle. Do I maybe love the way he's built through his shoulder? No. Would I like to pull him apart out the backside of that shoulder? Absolutely. But hey, it is what it is. I think he finds a nice home in second. Young lady's calf that comes out next in third is the one that between that pair, you put your hands on him and you think, oh yeah, this one's right, this one's right. To me, that rascal just gets far too extreme and far too vertical through the point of his shoulder to find his way into a top pair. I want to relax that one out the back. I'd like to lay that one back through the point of his shoulder, give him some more flexibility from knee to ground. Young lady's calf that comes out next is one that really gets out and goes better. I think he's no doubt built better, more acceptably at the backside of his shoulder and at the same time through the point of his shoulder, and it sure is evident when he goes out and goes on gets out and goes from knee to ground. Young man's Baldy steer that comes out next may be, without a doubt, the heaviest conditioned steer in this lightweight class, and I sure like that about him. He's simply the most devoid of any meat animal shape. You get in behind him, he's more inverted in his skeleton, he's flatter down his top, he's flatter down the lower portion of his leg and his inner leg as well. Just need to crack that one open and inject him with some meat animal shape. young ladies calf that rounds out the class, I think, has a similar story to tell as well. Another one that needs opened up, pulled apart, and at the same time, I simply don't think he handles with as much cover as the cattle above him. Interesting class, nice class winner. Let's give them a round of applause.
All right, winning class number 1 was Dakota McCracken. Second place went to Dallas. Cody's? All right, second place went to Dallas McCracken. Third place was Bailey Warner. Fourth place, Alexa Baker. And fifth place went to Chase Forbes. Congratulations, guys. Class 2 entering the ring now. Izzy Blazer with a calf weighing 11:10. Cooper with a calf weighing 11:43. Emily Hayson with a calf weighing 11:52. Corey Hall with a calf weighing 11:61. And Mackenzie Cope with a calf weighing 11:65. Class 3, if you would like to make your way to the makeup area, we're looking for Davin Coons, Caitlin Black, Addison Blazer, Chance Cope, and Griffin Bardo. Again, we'd like to thank all of our great sponsors who have made this week possible. Without you, we would not be here. Without the great support of our Junior Fair and Senior Fair Board members, we would not be here. So again, thanks to everyone who has graciously supported us. Thanks to Rich Boyd and the Pigeon family for helping with the ring today. We greatly appreciate your help. Black, Addison Blazer, Chance Cope, and Griffin Bardo. After Class 3, we will pick Division 1 champion and reserve, and then move on to Class 4, 5, and 6.
of these 5 cattle, this may potentially bode to be the most potentially controversial class of any county fair steer show that I've done in quite a while. And simply, I think if we were to pull 10 people out of the stands and have you rank them, I'm pretty sure all 10 of you would do something a little bit different. So to me, the one thing I know that I'm really comfortable with is simply finding, I think in my mind, when things get a little hairy or get a little dicey, I tend to just keep it simple. And to me, the one that's the most fault-free, the most practical, the most complete is the young ladies that I opt to start with. I simply think he's the soundest structured. I think he's the highest quality that we have out here. You go ahead and study him in terms of his muscularity, and he may not be overwhelming. He may not be the heaviest muscled one in the class, but he doesn't disappoint me. You get your hands on him, and is he maybe the most ideal in his handle? No. I view him as acceptable. I think it's good enough, comparatively speaking, to everything else to go ahead and use to win the class. The really interesting one to me is the young lady's white calf that comes out next. And here's one that when he walked in, he was like, I thought to myself, yep, that's one to cling to. I got my hands on him, and that's really what lands him in second. To me, if I'm to go home and keep one on feed here, it's this one. I know he's the most open about his rib cage. He's the harshest and rawest about his condition. That's the one I think could just be farther advanced. I would like to see farther advanced in terms of his feeding pattern to go ahead and talk about using to win the class. I like his muscularity. I like him skeletally. I just need that one farther with more feed into him to go ahead and compete with the one that's winning. Now the young lady's blonde steer, you want to say, boy, that's the one I want to cling to. That's the stoutest, most three-dimensional rascal that's out here. I wouldn't argue you. Heck, I'd agree with you. There's no doubt he is overwhelming in terms of his muscularity. He is bold-backed, he is bold-ribbed, and he's got a whale of a stifle set inside of him. What lands him in third? Simply skeleton. That one needs to get out and go better for me. I'm not comfortable using one that gets out and paddles, plants and rolls and deviates out of his hop that way. And at the same time, when you really study him through the point of his shoulder, that one gets plenty forward and upright for me. The next young lady's calf that comes out next was one that I think has some added muscularity about him too. That's one that I would just really like to change the way he hinges and the way he's designed out of his hip. He's one that gets shorter, steeper, more round, more off in his hip, really down in his pen bone, just one that needs reassembled there. Young lady's red calf that comes out last is one that, hey, you get your hands on him and you think, oh yeah, this thing is finished nice, and I sure commend her for that. Where that one falls into last for me is just simply based on his three-dimensional meat animal shape. He doesn't have enough. He's more devoid of his muscularity. He tends to taper and flatten. And sure, he handles with a good amount of condition on him. I need more muscularity. I need more shape and turn to that loin edge. And when you get down and study him in his base width, he comes there. He goes the same way. I just want to crack that rascal open and give him more muscularity throughout. Nice set of cattle. Really, really interesting 5 head. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause.
All right, winning class 2 was Chloe Cooper. Second place, Mackenzie Cope. Third place, Corey Hall. Fourth place, Izzy Blazer. And fifth place was Emily Hayson. Class 3 is now entering the ring. Class 3 is Davin Coons, Caitlin Black. Coons, Caitlin Black, Addison Blazer, Chance Cope, and Griffin Bardo. We do need the first and second place winners from Class 1 and Class 2 to stay close. Stay close to the makeup area. Chloe Cooper to come back in the ring.
The young man in the lid that I'm going to go ahead and use his steer to win this class. I'm going to say he walks the class. And I would argue anyone that says maybe not from a quality standpoint, I think he does from a quality standpoint. but physically, literally, skeletally, he walks the class. This is the one in the class that can get out and go for days. And he can do that because of the way, however you prefer to read cattle. I read cattle from top to bottom. Some people like to read them at the ground up. He can get out and go so nicely because of how loosely he's constructed, how long he is out of his hip, how laid back he is out of his shoulder in comparison to the young lady's calf in second and the young man's in third. Now you want to tell me this one isn't quite as cracked open as the second and third place cattle? I wouldn't totally agree with that. When we get out and get him on the go and you get behind him, this one has as much true base width in him as our young ladies in second and as the young man's in third. Where I would pick on this one a little bit is he quite as punchy in his muscle design? No, he's not. He is longer in his muscle pattern. It's there, but he is indeed, without a doubt, longer in his muscle shape and in his pattern and does not appear to have quite the three-dimensional pop down through his lower leg into his quarter and into his twist. I think that's still awfully nice quality kind of cattle to use to start the class with. Let's wait until I'm done talking your cattle until you exit. The young lady that exited in second, I think that one hits you really hard in terms of his look and build from the side. I think he's set wider and square out of his hip and through his pin bone. But where that one struggles in comparison to the young man's that wins the classes when we get him out and get him on the go, that one tends to plant and deviate out of his hock. I read him to be really good at the ground, straighter and more restricted from hock out of his hock, though. Similar story for the young man's that comes out in third. Here's one that you want to tell me is, without a doubt, the most punchy, the most three-dimensional about his muscle shape, and I'm all on board with that. I think he's got the most shape and turn down over his loin. I think he handles that way, too, and I think he's bolder through the center portion of his lower leg and in his twist. To me, there's a line in the sand or the sawdust or mulch, whatever you want to call it, skeletally. If that one's acceptable for you, I think you can use him to win the class. For me, that one's too labored when we get him out and get him on the go. I think he's more incorrectly assembled out of his hip, and it shows when we get him out. He's more restricted from hip to hock and hock to ground. Young ladies that comes out next is one that sure is bold through the center portion of his body. He's big-footed, and he's good-boned. Another one I find some faults with skeletally. I'd really like to reassemble him again, up high out of his hip, through his hock. I'd like to smooth that one up about his hock. He's packing a little bit of fluid, and I'd like to see him get out and go better. Young man's that comes out next, another one, not to sound like a broken record. From hip to hock and hock to ground, I really want to reassemble that one to get him any higher. But again, you want to tell me he is really neat through the point of his shoulder. He's good out of his chest floor, and he's a really good-looking one from the side, and I agree with all those things. Skeletally, we need to find him a home there in fifth. Nice class of cattle. Let's give them a round of applause.
These ones will be the Division I champion. All right, entering the ring now will be our first place winners from Class 1, 2, and 3 to be your Division I champion and reserve. Entering the ring will be Dakota McCracken from Class 1, Chloe Cooper from Class 2, and Chance Cope from Class 3. Also on standby, we need Dallas McCracken, Mackenzie Cope, and Addison Blazer.
you maybe never quite know exactly what to get into in Division One at some fairs, and I'm happy with what we have out here. From our first class up to the young man's out of the last class weighing 1220, handling well. Something with all these three that we have out here, down to even our lightweight steer, that thing handles really well. Obviously, would we like to see a few more days on feed, ideally? Yeah, but for Division One cattle, I think all three of these are acceptable. I think there's some differences between them. The young lady's Baldy that won that first class won so quite handily by default, and we talk just in terms of quality. He's the best built, the best designed, the best looking. He overwhelmed that class in terms of sheer quality. I think things get a little bit tighter when we get him out here with some heavier cattle. Obviously, maybe gets out muscled a little bit. Maybe doesn't quite have the amount of finish as another one does that we have out here. But that's a nice project steer that the young lady's brought back out here and sure deserves to be out here. Calf that comes out of the second class is one that when he relaxes and he shows himself, and yeah, we're kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt right there, but when he relaxes and he shows himself, that's good structured kind of cattle that has some muscle. Truthfully, of the three, he's the heaviest muscled one that we have out here, and you can't deny that. When you get your hands on him, again, I'm going to call him acceptable in comparison to what else was in that class and how he got out here. But of the three, he's truthfully the rawest of the three when we get your hands on him. And I'd almost expect that with the added advantages in his muscularity. Again, one that gets out and goes quite nicely. Would we like to change the way he's assembled out of his hip ever so slightly? Sure, absolutely. I think the young man's that comes out of that last class, that was a challenging class with some real differences and some cattle that really contrasted in their advantages. I'm happy we have this young man's calf out here again. Another one that is as good as structured as we can make one. Would we like to stouten him up about his footwork and his bone work and compared to the young lady's calf above him? Well, sure, why not? But that is a good, functional, practical kind of hind leg. Maybe not quite a killer show steer hind leg, but that is a good, functional, practical one that's got some good feeding look and ability inside of him. Again, we talked maybe not as explosive, as three-dimensional in his muscle shape, but it's there. He's stout. He's simply longer muscled. He's our champion in this division. Let's give him a round of applause. Aaron. That young lady's brockle face steer that comes out of that third class. Again, we talked that class being a deeper class in terms of overall quality and some differences in this one. Really a wide, square hip, square-ended kind of calf. Maybe tends to flatten and taper down low. And is he as good structured as the young man's? No, I don't think he is. I think that one tends to plant and roll, get outside of himself ever so slightly. I still think there's enough overall quality inside of that one when you get behind him and study him in the way he hinges up high out of his throat latch, through his head, the way he ties in through the point of his shoulder. I like the rib cage that's set inside of him. For me, there's enough quality there. I'm going to use him for reserve in the division. Let's give that young lady a round of applause.
All right, finish Division 1. Grand champion Division 1 is going to go to Chance Cope, and reserve champion is going to go to Addison Blazer. Congratulations, guys. All right, we are going to move into Division 2, which will be Class 4, 5, and 6. So we are going to be looking for Hayden Johnson, Hayden Patrone, Oliver Kiko, Madison Cope, Daniel McCracken, and Brooke Brubaker. If Class 4 would like to enter the ring. Hayden Patrone will be entering with the calf weighing 1262. Hayden Patrone with the calf weighing 1267. Oliver Kiko with a calf weighing 1271. Madison Cope with a calf weighing 1274. Daniel McCracken weighing 1276. And Brooke Brubaker finishing out the class with 1278. Class 5, making your way to the makeup area will be John Bardo, Bridget Hilliard, Colin Warner, Meg McNichol, and Cole Forbes. Make today possible, and a special thanks to our judge, Jeremy Barber, for traveling from West Salem to attend our show today. I'm again very grateful to everyone involved. The Grubbs family, Columbiana Mahoning Trumbull Cattlemen's Association, Kurt and Allison Hively, Kiko Meats and the Kiko family, Damascus Livestock Auction, A-Plus Pest Solutions and Ben Foster, Mackenzie Chestnut Photography, Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, the Country Wranglers 4-H Club for their donation, Full Circle Farms and the Tubbs family, Sugar Creek Stockyards, Baker Farms, Bakerloo Cattle Company, the Timmons family, Agater Farms, Thunder Creek Cattle Company, and Dunoon Lumber for the bedding, Envelope One and the Pigeon family for all of their help, and again, Baird Brother Hardwood.
I think we've got a really interesting, good top pair of cattle out here, and while I don't think they could possibly contrast in their advantages anymore, I do apologize for taking a little extra longer on them, but I think it's important to get them right. And to me, the young man's that comes out that I'm still comfortable with using to win the class, initially he hit me hard, and I thought, boy, that one's going to win and do so quite handily. The more you really study that one, and I sure appreciate some fluff and some puff, but the young lady's calf that comes out in second has none of that, and I still like that calf. So I think it just forces a guy to get back and study true nuts and bolts of cattle. And to me, there's still enough good inside this young man's to go ahead and win the class. And I think what does it for me is he maybe skeletally perfect? No, I don't think he is perfect. I'd maybe like to change the way he's assembled up high out of his hip and maybe make him handle that hind leg with a little more coordination. But for me, the way that one gets out and goes from the point of his shoulder to the knee and to the ground is so far superior than the young ladies that I have in second. There's just too much good inside of that one, flexibility-wise and coordination-wise out of his front 1/3 to get him to go anywhere else. Now, admittedly, would I like to crack that one open out the backside of his shoulder? Absolutely. I think he's big-bodied, but let's not confuse that with a big three-dimensional round rib cage. That advantage goes to the young lady here in second. That rascal is bowled through the center portion of his body, and I like it. I think he ties better and neater out the backside of his shoulder with a fraction more true muscularity. What lands that guy in second to me is just how straight or how forward in a knee and the shoulder can you accept one. That one's pushing the limits for me. I like that cattle. He hit me hard when he came in. I just need to make that one more coordinated from knee to ground to go ahead and compete with the young man's that wins the class. It's a nice top pair of steers. I think from there, the young man in the brown lid certainly finds a nice home in third. And here's one that is just good, complete, practical kind of cattle. He maybe doesn't overwhelm me in any one particular area. I think he gets out-muscled in comparison to the top two cattle above him. I think he's plainer featured throughout. But he's good, honest, genuine cattle that finds a nice home in third. Young man's red steer, I think, comes out and finds a nice home in fourth. He's big-footed and got some bone work to him. Here's one that just doesn't balance up as well from the side as the three above him, and at the same time, you get your hands on him. He's truly the lightest about his loin muscle. I think he's the lightest about his loin muscle, the flattest down through the lower leg, one that I just need to open up again in all aspects of his meat animal shape. Opposite end of the spectrum for the young man's steer that comes out next. Here's one that is burly in terms of his loin edges. He's got a lot of muscularity to him. Another one we just need to redefine skeletally and change him when he gets out and gets on the go. Handle his hock with more coordination and more security and strength at the ground in the way he handles himself and his ankle. Young man's red calf that rounds out the class is one that I like from the side when he's parked, out of his chest floor, up high out of the way he ties into the top of his shoulder. But where we need to criticize that one to me is another one that reads to be more concerningly upright and forward in the point of his shoulder. And when we get him out and put him on the go again, he does so as I'd expect to, a little more insecure, more restricted from knee to ground. Nice set of cattle, good top end. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right, winning class 4 was... The mic doesn't like us today. Winning class 4 was Oliver Kiko. Second place. Second place goes to Madison Cope. Third place goes to Hayden Johnson. Fourth place goes to Brooke Brubaker. And fifth place went to Daniel McCracken. Class 5 is entering the ring now. John Bardo, Bridget Hilliard, Colin Warner, Meg McNichol, and Cole Forbes. We'll be looking for Cody Cope, Brody Brubaker, Madison Agater, Mackenzie Whitted, and Haley Jones. 1330 to 1340.
case, it is 100% accurate. I don't think we could have two cattle contrasting their advantages any more than these two do. To me, this question comes down, and I don't have them placed yet. I'm just talking them. You never know what's coming next. I like this pair of cattle awfully, awfully well. So to me, it just simply comes down to the question in my mind, where do tricked out show cows end and real cows begin? I sure love the fluff and puff that this calf has. I like the way he ties up high into the point of his shoulder, and I like him from the silhouette. To me, we get him out and get him set into motion, put him into transit. The young lady's smoke calf, for me, is without a doubt softer in all aspects of his skeleton. I think he's built more correctly out of his hip. I think he's raised up higher in the pin bone, and accordingly, he drops down a more correctly assembled hind leg that, without a doubt, is more correct from hock to ground, and in turn, has more comfort in his ankle. At the same time, on the opposite end of the spectrum, when we study this calf in his shoulder, he is laid back further. He offers more slope and angulation to the point of his shoulder. And when we get him out and put him on the go, he gets out and he takes long, coordinated, flexible strides. Accordingly, you get your hands on these two cattle and they handle differently. The young lady's calf in front, to be honest with you, I read him a little soft. He's a little softer than I'd prefer. But then you go ahead and put your hands on the young lady's calf behind me, and boy, he's a little hard. I'm not sure either one of these quite handle to be ideal in my preference, so I'm throwing handle out the window. It's not going to sort this pair of cattle in my mind. To me, as far as muscularity goes, again, there's differences. I think the young lady's black calf is bigger and truthfully bolder in his loin. Again, we see that. I'd like to settle that loin down in him. He is big-backed. He's big-loined. We need to relax that. He's harder in his muscularity. He's harder in his shape. Opposite to the young lady's calf again. Now here's one that is symmetrical in the way he is at the top side of his skeleton, as he is in terms of his base width, as he is at the ground. To me, we go ahead and what breaks this pair of skeleton, I'm going to use the young lady's Char calf or Charlotte influence calf to win the class. Follow that with the young lady's black calf. Congratulations, girls. Two nice head of cattle. I think from there, the young man's Hereford marked calf's the logical fit for third, and he does so just in terms of some of the totals. To me, he's the most fault-free of the remaining trio of cattle. He's good structured. He's well assembled off of both ends. Sure, we'd like to open him up. He just runs out of overall quality to compete with the two young ladies above him. Similar story for the young man's more moderate black calf that comes out in fourth. One, I like the rib cage in him. I like him when we get him out and get him on the go. He's one that just reasonably plainer in his overall pattern, plainer in his muscularity. I think a nice home in fourth. Young man's red calf that comes out fifth is one that skeletally I like if you're okay with one coming and going narrower from both ends. He's just one I need to open up. A flexible kind of cattle off of both ends, needs pulled apart and opened up. Nice class of cattle. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
All right, Class 5. First place went to Bridget Hilliard. Second place to Meg McNichol. Third place to John Bardo. Fourth place, Ellen Water. And fifth place was Cole Forbes. Entering the ring now is Class 6, with steers weighing 1341 to 1354. We have Cody Cope, Brody Brubaker, Madison Agater, Mackenzie Whitted, and Haley Jones. At the end of Class 6, we will have our Division 2 champions. So we will need Oliver Kiko and Bridget Hilliard to remain in the makeup area. Second place winners from Class 4 and 5, stay close also.
7? Okay. We could have a picnic of 7 or whatever we're allowed to have down this critter's back. It is big, it is bold. What I really like about that, though, is how symmetrical it is. A lot of times you see ones like this, and they may be big and bold and burly up high, and they're more inverted at the ground. This critter reads with extreme stoutness off of both ends of his skeleton, from top to bottom, from front to rear, however you prefer to read it. He is strong-jawed, he is wide-eyed, he is big-backed, he is square-pinned, and he is really, really square at the ground and big-footed and big-boned. Now, what's my holdup on this calf? To be honest with you, I'd like to see him go just ever so slightly better from hock to ground. I think he tends to get just a fraction wide from hock to hock. I'd like to pull him in just a little bit. If it's acceptable for you, I think he wins the class. To me, it's questionable. Is he maybe the sappiest bellied one out here? No. Of this top trio of cattle, I rank him third in terms of softness to his rib cage, but I would challenge you to find, truthfully, a bigger, bolder-centered one than that one. That thing, when he turns a corner and he's coming at you, that is a big, big rib cage set inside of him. Like to pretty him up out of his chest floor a little? Sure, so be it. It's not a deal breaker for me. I think he wins the class, and that's a good kind of cattle for a county fair. I think my issue calf comes with the young ladies in second, and this one threw me for a loop at first. You get your hands on him, and to be honest, a 1,350-pound steer, I'd like to see him a little farther advanced in terms of his feeding pattern. I think he's just a fraction more raw when compared back to the young lady Charlet influence steer. But at the same time, he's still got a lot of back shape in him. What lands him in second to me is he's more inverted in terms of his shape. He is big-backed, he is wide-pinned, he is square-ended. But to me, he really tends to taper and flatten when we transition from his pin to his stifle and to the ground. I'd like to open that one up in terms of his base width ever so slightly, and I'd like to give him that shot more muscularity to his stifle and into his twist. I'd like to maybe clean him up about his hock ever so slightly as well. When we go ahead and get him on the go, he needs to be a little coarser hocked at the same time. I think the young man's calf that comes out in third is, let's be honest, this is really good kind of cattle. I like this cattle. Another one, though, that I read to be ever so slightly more forward from the point of their shoulder to their knee. If I could lay that thing back a little bit more in his shoulder, I think he would really, really push this second and third, or their first and second steers, no matter how much fur and fluff and puff they put on him. That's good kind of cattle. I like his rib cage. What really lands him in third for me is when you get out over his loin edges and you see him in his hip and you really read him in that regard. I think he is symmetrical, but I would like to open him up and pull him apart out of his hip through his pin, down over his loin edges, to go ahead and run with these two anymore. So nice trio of cattle. It's a really good high end. I think from there, the young man's calf that comes out next does so just in terms of his boldness to the center portion of his body. I think he gets simply outclassed. He doesn't have the quality as the three ahead of him. He's a little more off balance out of his chest floor through the center portion of his body. He just gets a little softer there. I'd like to clean him up out of his chest floor, his throat latch, and at the same time, he needs pulled apart in his muscularity to compete with the top three. Similar story for the young lady's calf. Now you want to tell me that her baldy maybe ties in higher and neater at the top of his shoulder? Absolutely. You want to tell me he's better out of his chest? I agree totally. I think even so, compared to the young man's calf ahead of him, one that tends to taper and flatten, I'd like to pull that one apart and inject him with some more muscularity. Let's go ahead and give these five a really good round of applause. Congratulations.
And this will be Division 2 champions. All right, winning class number 6 is Mackenzie Whitted. Second place goes to Haley Jones. Third place was Cody Cope. Fourth place, Brody Brubaker. And fifth place, Madison Agater. We will now have the first place winners from class 4, 5, and 6 for your Division 2 champions. Entering the ring will be Oliver Kiko, Bridget Hilliard, and Mackenzie Whitted. Second place winners from class 4, 5, and 6, please be on standby. Again, I'd like to thank all of our wonderful sponsors, the Fair Board, everyone who is able to attend our show. Special thanks to Richard Boyd and the Pigeon family for offering to help with our ring crew.
Let's go ahead and give our Division II competitors a good round of applause. Really a nice division of cattle, and there's some give and take in those classes. I am happy with what we have out here. I think we'll talk each one briefly here. And the young man that came out of the first class was one out of that class. Again, we called that the most complete. He was the one that I was most comfortable with when we went ahead and set him into motion. He was better in the point of his shoulder, got out and gets out and goes better. We get him out here and you get your hands on him. And how does that one rank in terms of his feeding pattern? Of the three, he's third. That's the one that could use or be benefited with a few more days on feed, no doubt about that. But he's still good kind of cattle out here for that young man in comparison to a couple of the others, or both of the others. We'd like to pull him apart, crack him open out the back of his shoulder, through his heart, about his forerib, maybe elevate him out of his pin at the same time. I'm happy he's out here. The young ladies calf that came out of that class did so just from a build and a fundamental standpoint. A nuts and bolts of true, honest, genuine cattle. I think that one had it. That one was better quality in terms of his build, his design, and his skeleton. I get it. We get him out here, and skeletally, how is he of the three? No doubt about it. That's the soundest structured calf we have out here. He's the most correct. At the same time, he's probably the plainest about his loin edges. He's probably the softest about his handle at the same time. I like that calf. I think he maybe gets outclassed by a few of the others that we have out here in terms of the way he ties at the point of his shoulder. I don't think he's quite the widest or the boldest over his loin at the same time, and I don't think he has the honest, true shape to the turn of his stifle and his inner leg at the same time when we compare him back to the young lady's calf that wins that last class. And again, we talked on this calf, just true stoutness from end to end, absolutely muscularity down his top, through his stifle, in his twist. That thing is stout featured from end to end. get your hands on him. He reads the same way. He feels and handles the same way that he reads. Skeletally, where would we change that calf again? He tends to get a fraction of a claw outside of his cavity ever so slightly. If you're okay with it, I think there's no doubt that calf goes ahead and wins the division. To me, I call it acceptable. Congratulations. Miss, I'll gladly bring 5 people. If you're going for a true, honest compliment, I don't know what's coming next. We get that young lady's black calf out here that was second to the our champion, and that thing has an incredible ring presence about his front end. He ties so high and neat at the top of his shoulder. He's really neat when she has him stopped. Again, we beat up on him and compared to our champion as wanting to be more inverted about his build. He's one that tends to taper and flatten when we study him in terms of his base width, his true lower leg, and his inner twist. And again, maybe smooth him up a little bit in the way he's built and assembled and ties into his hock on the inner sides of his hock there. I still think that's really good cattle. He's going to follow for reserve. Congratulations, Miss. Stay. We're going to pick a top 5 in the division, and to me, again, that second class was awfully good. An interesting top pair. The young ladies is going to be third. Let's bring that second place back in. Young lady in the pink top that brought it to my attention, we're wearing the matching shirt, and I think she's right. But I like that calf in that class. That was a tough top pair in that class. And again, structure broke that pair. For me, he finds a nice home in fourth. Congratulations. We'll follow that with the young man in fifth.
All right, Division II champion goes to Mackenzie Whitted, and reserve champion Division II goes to Haley Jones. Congratulations, guys. And our last division, Division III, Class 7. We will be looking for Colby Cooper, Samantha Tubbs, Cameron Kiko, Taylor Whitted, Gavin Berger, and Alexis Timmons. If you can make your way to the ring. All calves in Class 7 come in weighing 1363 to 1385. Samantha Tubbs, Cameron Kiko, Taylor Whitted, Gavin Berger, and Alexis Timmons. Calves in Class 8 can be making their way towards the ring. Class 8 will be Olivia Grubb, Lily Raber, Luke Lukowski, and Emmy Jones. Olivia Grubb, Lily Raber, Luke Lukowski, and Emmy Jones can be making their way to the makeup area. And the last class of the evening, Peyton Gott, Trey Warner, Garrett Timmons, Michael Bardo, and Logan Cooper can be starting to get ready. At the end of Division 3, we will need all champion and reserve champion division winners, along with the third places, to return for the champion drive.
In this class, we've got a real hands down, clear-cut class winner that the young lady in the red top brings to us out here. And here's one that, no, he may not be exactly the stoutest in terms of his muscularity in the class, but I think he's got enough. And really what ends up with that one winning the class, again, we've talked on a couple class winners, just sheer quality. His build, his design, his balance, his symmetry. We set him into motion. Is he maybe perfect? No, he's not. And truthfully, I'd like to see him be a touch better and more appropriate in terms of his base width in relation to his loin edges and in relation to his hip and his pin set. But I sure think he's still one of the sounder, if not the soundest calf in the class. Now, the young lady's calf in the red top that comes out next, hands down stoutest. Biggest muscled, boldest through the center portion of his body, most three-dimensional calf in every conceivable way. Another one that we just need to know when to draw the line in the shavings, if his skeleton is acceptable or not. To me, it is not good enough to go ahead and use to win the class. I really want to lengthen that one out of his hip. At the same time, I think that would no doubt make him get out and reach with more coordination from hock to ground, make him more secure in his ankle at the same time. It's a nice pair of tops. It's a nice top pair of steers that really differ in their advantages. I think from there, the young lady's calf that comes out next may be even more so symmetrical than the young lady's that comes out in front of her. He's big-bodied. He's got some good things about him. I like his foot size. I like his bone work. Here's one that just tends to taper and flatten when you read him in terms of his muscularity, especially compared back to that young lady's calf that comes out in second. He's one that wants to taper and flatten through his lower leg, be more devoid of some meat animal shape in comparison to that top pair of cattle. Young lady's calf that comes out next, certainly not the issue. Here's one that has a lot of muscle shape to him, and truthfully, I think he's stouter featured than the calf above him. Another one we need to change skeletally to get any higher. He's one that gets out. He's more restricted from hock to ground and insecure in the way he handles himself and his ankle. Young man's orange calf that comes out next is another really, really stout featured one. Strong-jawed, big loin, big-footed, big-boned. One, though, that we need to really change skeletally. He gets more forward and upright through his shoulder. He's thinking about coming over on his knee. And at the same time, then you go ahead and get your hands on him. And maybe that's where he disappointed me most. For a calf weighing that much and for one that's actually that moderate, I'd like to see more condition on that one. I think he reads to be raw in his handle. Similar story for the young man's calf that rounds out the class. One that for these upper limits, I'd like to see that one more advanced in his feeding pattern. I'd like to see a few more days on feed. I'd just like to see him also meet my hand with more loin edge at the same time and muscularity. Nice class of cattle. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right, winning class 7 was Cameron Kiko. Second place went to Taylor Whitted. Third place, Samantha Tubbs. Fourth place, Alexis Timmons. And fifth place went to Gavin Berger. Entering the ring now is class 8. Olivia Grubb, Lily Raber, Luke Lukowski, and Emmy Jones. Weights of these steers range from 1392 to 1466. And class number 9 steers can start entering the makeup area. We'll be looking for Gott, Trey Warner, Garrett Timmons, Michael Bardo, and Logan Cooper.
first came in, I thought, whoo, that is a stout rascal over his top, down his hip, big-legged, big-footed, and he gets out for a stout and muscular as he is. I think he gets out and goes fairly well. Where this pair got rather close in my mind as we went on is when you get your hands on him. The young lady's black calf, I'm not 100% comfortable with the way he handles for his size. That one needs to be more open about his rib, more uneven in his finish, and that's really where the young lady's orange calf really excels. Really, really good handling kind of cattle there. Gets out, another one gets out and goes quite nicely. I think just gets overwhelmed in terms of his rib, overwhelmed in terms of his loin edges, out of his hip. Just true muscularity. I think the black calf eats him up in that regard. You go ahead and handle him, and there's no doubt about it. I prefer that one. I think that one just gets swallowed up in terms of his muscle shape and pattern by the young lady's black calf. I think from there it's a logical fit in third with the young lady in the orange top, and here's a calf that's a really good structured kind of cattle. I read him to be plainer in his overall shape and in his design, but that's okay. A good structured calf's got some muscle. I think he gets runs out of some of that added quality as the young lady's orange calf ahead of him. He's deeper in his chest floor, a little frailer in his bone work, a little more irregular in the way he ties into his hip and in his pin bone. Similar story for the young man's calf that rounds out the class. I think we just run out of some of that overall quality as the two steers of the two steers that win. Here's one that's just more off balance. He's deeper chested. He's plainer about his head and through his front end. Most importantly, that's the one of the class that I'd really like to open up about his muscularity. Flatter down through his lower leg. I think he's flatter over his loin edges when you put your hands on him as well. Nice class of cattle, interesting top pair. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right, Class 8. Winning the class was Emmy Jones. Second place went to Olivia Grubb. Third place, Lily Raber. And fourth place went to Luke Lukowski. Great job, guys. And our last class of the evening is entering the ring. Peyton Gott, Trey Warner, Garrett Timmons, Michael Bardo, and Logan Cooper. These are steers weighing 1478 to 1512. When Class 9 is over, we will have winners from Class 7, 8, and 9 to compete for Division 3 champion, and then finally on to our champion drive.
the young man's brockle-faced steer sorts himself quite nicely to the top. But here's the most complete, the most fault-free, the sum of the totals in my mind. He's all of those things, but what really sorts him to the top is when you put your hands on him. For a steer of that weight, that dude is fresh. That young man, his family has done a fantastic job feeding him and getting him to the point where he's at. I really like the way that one handles. I think he sorts himself quite nicely. At the same time, good structured, good modern kind of steer. I like his build. I like his design. Maybe not the most attractive, a little shorter fronted and a little more off balanced, but that's good, honest cattle. Now, the young man's calf that comes out next sure is one that is without a doubt the best on the profile in terms of his silhouette. He's the best in his lines. He's the most proportional out of his hip and down through his lower leg. He's really good looking out of his chest floor, ties in really high and neat at the top of his shoulder. Where I pick on this one, man, I just find this one to be a fraction more excessive in terms of his overall frame size. You get your hands on him, and he handles the same way he reads. Of the cattle remaining, he's the hardest about his condition. I think he's the rawest in his handle. That one still could use a shot more condition for my preference. I think the young man's blue roan calf that comes out next sure has that decided advantage in his handle over top of that one. But here's one that just wants to play out about his muscularity when we compare him to those top two cattle. He's long-bodied, and I really like that about him, but he plays out over his loin edges, down through his stifle, and in his inner twist as well. Young man's Hereford that comes out next, really a nice project, real-world kind of cattle for him. For his size and his weight, he sure handles nicely. He's done a good job in that regard. Again, one that we just need to open up about his meat animal shape. He's narrower from stifle to stifle at knee to knee. We just need to pull him apart and give him more muscle. Similar story for the young man's calf that comes out next. Another one that's just plainer, more off balance throughout, runs out of some of that added quality as our top two cattle have, and at the same time, flatter and narrower throughout. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Nice way to end our steer show.
All right, winning class number 9 was Garrett Timmons. Second place went to Mikey Bardo. Third place, Peyton Gott. Fourth place, Logan Cooper. And fifth place, Trey Warner. We will now be having class 7, 8, and 9 first place winners return for Division 3 champion. We'll be looking for Cameron Kiko, Emmy Jones, and Garrett Timmons. Second place from Division 3, please be on standby. Taylor Whitted, Olivia Grubb, and Mikey Bardo. Also do our county born and raised grand and county born and raised reserve. So please stick around for a moment once we crown our grand champions. Thank you.
Let's give a good round of applause for our Division 3 cattle. I think talk each one here briefly. The young ladies out of the first class, probably the easiest class winner that we've had so far today. And that's not to take anything about the others. We've just had some really deep classes. That thing comes out of that class in a smoke, and I'm glad he's out here. That one gives us a good look from the side. Is he maybe tricked out in any one area? No, I don't think he is. He gets a little deeper out of his chest floor, a little plainer headed, a little plainer necked. At the same time, how is he in terms of his muscularity? We talked in that class, there were cattle stouter than him, but sure didn't handle themselves out in transit the way that one does. He's big ribbed, he's bold bodied. I like his shape. We get him out here, and there's a couple that may be bolder up the top side of their skeleton than that one is, no doubt about it. I read him to be symmetrical, though. I think he's just as square up high as he is in between as he is down low. Symmetrical cattle, not as exaggerated as a few that we have out here. Young ladies that we have out of that next class, here's our exaggerated hipped one. This rascal is big hipped. He is big ended up high. We talked about one in that last division as maybe being more inverted in their build. That's this dude. To me, he is really big and bold up high, but he funnels and tapers as we go down low. At the same time, we get our hands on him, and he really disappoints me when I get my hands on him and we transition over his rib cage. That one's more patchy and uneven than I'm personally comfortable with at this size where they should be. Young man's that comes out of the next class. Hey, here's a calf without a whole lot of fluff and buff, but darn it, that's good cattle. And of the three, you're crazy. You get your hands on him, and that is a well-finished kind of steer. That young man and his family has done a fantastic job. Not a lot of bells and whistles, not a lot of tricks on him. Good, honest, real-world cattle. Is he as stout-featured as a few that we have? No, he's a good, honest, genuinely well-conditioned kind of steer for that young man. So I think there's a couple different ways a guy or a gal could go out here, and for me it comes down a pretty easy decision, though, on the top side for Grand in this division. That's the young lady smoke steer. Congratulations. Up front, hun. I think this is a really close decision for reserve and third in this division, and we get this stout powerhouse that comes out as second out of that class. And again, we talked, where's that line in terms of skeleton and structure drawn? In class, I didn't think it was acceptable enough to contend with that young lady steer. We get him out here, and I think things get awfully close. To me, it's between that one that's got all this muscle and shape, skeletally challenged more so than the young man's out of that last class that doesn't have those extra bells and whistles, doesn't have that added balance or attractiveness on either end of the skeleton, but darn it, he's good cattle. To me, I'm more comfortable with him. We're going to use him for reserve in division. You bringing a second in? Or? Second? Are you bringing seconds in? I think for third, then the logical thing to do is go ahead and cling to our second place out of that first class. Congratulations in third. for fourth. The young ladies out of the second class, we're going to use him for fourth in the division. Congratulations. There's only 4 here, so. We talked that young man's calf in class as being big and bold up high, really level and square in his lines. I still read him the same way. I'd still like to soften him in his rib cage. I'd like to tone him down in terms of his skeletal size. That's a nice county fair steer for that young man. I think awfully deserving to be in the top 5 of the division. Congratulations. He'll be 5th.
All right, Division 3 Grand Champion goes to Cameron Kiko. And Reserve Champion goes to Garrett Timmons. Congratulations. Now for the moment most of you have been waiting for all day. Our Grand Champion drive. We'll be looking for Chance Cope out of Division 1, Mackenzie Whitted out of Division 2, and Cameron Kiko out of Division 3. All reserve and top 3 in each division, please remain on standby. Also enter the ring. The 3 reserve, we'll be looking for Addison Blazer, Haley Jones, and Garrett Timmons. Amongst all of our challenges, our exhibitors have had a wonderful year and they have done a fabulous job. So again, if you see any of our sponsors out and about, please thank them. Also, special thanks to those helping here today, Rich Boyd, the Pigeon family, Envelope One for all of their printing for us. And a special thanks to our judge for 2020, Mr. Jeremy Barber. Their continued support of our wonderful exhibitors and our community.
Things for sure, Charlet is going to win the show. Apparently, our Charlet influence steer, so we have that to bet on. We're not going to talk these cattle to each individually. We've talked them in class, and I love that y'all do divisions. We talked them in divisions as well as we continue to break them down. But I'm going to take advantage and say just a few things before we wrap up and show you the ones that I like. And what more to say other than wow, 2020, right? What a deal. What an emotional roller coaster. And I want to commend all of you here in Columbiana County for putting on such a really nice show for our young people. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Back in maybe a previous life when I was coaching the livestock judging team at Kentucky, and on the last day of class before the students graduated, I sat them down and I said, you know what, tomorrow we are all equals, and I will gladly come to any show that any of you sort or judge, and I'll support any decision that y'all make as long as it is not a politically motivated decision and you don't talk religion or politics in the show ring. Well, tonight I'm going to flirt with one of those or bend it just a little bit before I show you our champions. And, you know, since this whole deal happened and 2020 really came to life, there was one saying that stuck with me, and that was all, we're in this together, we're in this together. And I have no idea where that saying came from. And to be totally dead honest with you, I hated it. I hated it with every fiber of my being that we're all in this together. It made no sense to me, not a lick, not a stitch of sense. And we come here today, and as we're pulling up in the fairgrounds and we hear the fans and the blowers and you can smell a little glue in the air, we are in this together. You guys did a great job. The livestock industry, the youth livestock industry is bonded together to still overcome obstacles and put things in motion and pull off an event like this. So before I show you the champions, I want to do one more thing. We're in a pretty nice cage in here. If something does get loose, we'll just catch it, move on. I'm still going to show you the same cattle I like. So let's take a minute and blow the top off of it. Let's get loud. Let's have fun, something we're not supposed to do anymore. Let's have fun for a minute and thank everybody that's put this awesome event on. Truly awesome. I'm going to show you the cattle I like in the order I like them in, and you sure don't have to agree, and that I'm fine with that. I'm walking out of here with a paycheck, so it doesn't matter to me. Thank you for allowing me to be here working with your young people and sorting through your cattle. It's been really enjoyable. What a great Friday evening. I'm going to show you the cattle I like. Congratulations.
special congratulations to our 2020 Grand Champion Market Steer going to Mackenzie Whitted. Reserve Champion Steer goes to Haley Jones. Third place goes to Cameron Kiko. Fourth place overall goes to Bridget Hilliard. And fifth place overall goes to Meg McNichol. Congratulations, guys. And our last placings of the evening, Chance Cope, Meg McNichol, and Garrett Timmons. If you can please stay in the ring to pick our county born and raised. Addie Blazer and Mikey Bardo, be on standby. You don't have to. What's the difference between county born and raised or steers that were born and raised in this?
Right, promoting it from within the county. So, you know, the young lady in the purple top or pink top, I guess, matching shirt, as she said, has got to go ahead and win this. And I sure have to commend, I'm going to use the young man in the lid for reserve, and he's brought really nice symmetrical cattle all day long. He's got a nice breeding program that he's locked into. Congratulations to you for reserve.
All right, 2020 County Born and Raised will go to Meg McNichol as she finishes out her wonderful 4-H career. This girl has done it all. Reserve champion goes to Chance Cope. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful 2020 fair. Please thank all of your parents and guardians who worked so hard to get you here. Thank you to our fair board and all of our supporters. And again, special thanks to Jeremy Barber for traveling to Columbiana County to judge our show. Thank you.